Hello and welcome to another video, and in this video we are going to be talking about the top 15 best creatures in all of JWA. So basically this includes every single creature, although granted this is only going to include uniques and the elusive apexes. So we're going to start off the list with number 15, Smilin' Emmys. Now, I underestimated this guy a lot, and I think he gets a lot less credit than he deserves to get. For one, basically every top player uses him, so that means he's got to be good, right? No. But he is pretty good, as you can see. He has 50% armor, so he can basically just tank everything. And if you go for a shield decelerated, that basically just means that you can basically just tank any swap bait. And you can also tank a swap in savagery as well. But you're most likely just going to go for burst, ice, rampage, and run. Which, by the way, this guy is the best into a swapper that you can do. Basically, what that means is you can do a rampage and run, and then head into like a swapper, like Dracoceratops, and then just do extra damage like that. It's a super good strat, although granted, that's probably not really going to happen that often, and if it's fighting an armor piercer, you may think that it dies, but because of the prowl and the pounds, it's pretty well handled, in terms of creatures that it can beat. Next at number 14 is Erika Specks. Now that I'm just getting ready for a lot of controversy on this video. My opinions are probably not right. So anyway, the stats are kind of ridiculous. The health is ridiculously high for no reason at all, which is good for a cunning. Its stats are pretty good. Its resistances are pretty good. And its moveset is pretty good. Basically, if you are a creature that can basically just do any attack, like any chomper basically just falls to this guy because almost all of his moves just distract. He can't be distracted. He's good against cunnings and fierces, although granted, he might as well die against a resilient, but at least he can tank some hits, which is why he got so high on this list. Well, not really high, but I mean, like, compared to all other creatures in the game, he's pretty good. Next is Next is number 13, Adeptus Maxima. Now, Adeptus Maxima is a pretty solid creature, I would say. It has a lot of health. It's pretty well stat. I would rather it had armor. It does actually need a buff. Just a small one, not too big. And overall, this thing is better than raids in PvP, but he still has some very good resistances. He can do 4,800 damage in 2 turns, but granted his turn 3 is pretty bad, and the fact that he's tanky and has a bad turn 3, because he's probably going to survive 3 turns in, is pretty dang bad. Although granted, I would probably just go for instant invincibility taunt. So overall, pretty good creature. Next is number 12, and I forgot to say, but I am going this list off of unboosted creatures. If this was boosted, then Mortis Rex would have been a lot higher on this list. But alas, it is not really that high on the list. It doesn't really have any good moves per se. It just has, I'm like, yeah, it has some pretty good moves, but it's just so basic, and it's a great creature, don't get me wrong. Basically anything with armor just dies, except Mammalia, but we'll get to that later. So overall, good creature. It's not really too amazing. It's really good, but just not that good for an Apex. Unfortunately, it is the worst unboosted. Next on the list is Antlonia. Wait, what? Yeah. Looking at this stat pool and moveset, it may seem very, very bad, and that's because it is. But if we look at the release notes for 2.6, we can see that this creature is gotten really buffed. He has a lot more damage, he has a lot more speed. Although granted, if you look at these stats, he's not really that tanky, he isn't really that fast, and he gains more tankiness, so that helps. And he also has 1400 damage with Persistent Ferocious, so Bellow becomes Devastation, and he can just do a ton. He goes through Dodge. I heard that he does 6,300 damage in a single hit if you have Persistent Ferocious and Devastation. Only weakness is Armor Piercers, so stuff like Mortis Rex, Thordor, Trico, that kind of stuff is going to give him a hard time, but basically against any resilient or cunning creature, it's gonna take the win. Anyway, I'm gonna close out the patch notes tab because none of the other creatures got buffed that are in this list. Next is another Apex, Gogotreebax. Now, Gogotreebax is the worst boosted, which is kind of sad because it is the hardest to get. But I mean, like, these stats are pretty good. Really high attack, really high health for some reason. You know, you may look at these moves and say, oh wow, that's pretty good, but it does die to Resilient. Here's the problem. 113 speed. This is just way, way too slow for a Cunning. If it kept all the other stats and got like 126 speed, it would have been a lot better, but alas, it just doesn't, it just isn't fast enough. To be honest, this stat spread reminds me more of a fierce creature than a cunning creature, which is not really that good of a thing to say to a cunning creature because it's supposed to be fast. Yes, it has two moves that speed increase, but it's just, eh. Although granted, it can do 3,200 damage, and I'm pretty sure this is a guaranteed 3,200. No, if something has armor or shields. No, if it has armor, then this doesn't really work. But this is still a pretty decent creature nonetheless. Next up, at number 9, we have Gemini Titan. Now, this is going to get me a lot of hate. I can see it. People are saying, oh, it's the strongest unique in the game. And, you know, it very well might be. I'm accepting all opinions. You could say Arcatherium is top tier, and that opinion is still technically valid. But anyway, on to Gemma stats. It has distraction resistance, which I think just makes it better. It also has almost unblockable damage with definite shield advantage, which is amazing move. It also has Group Decelerating Rampage, which is pretty good. It's basically like a slightly better Adeptus Maxima, which, as much as people want to say it's just the best creature in the game, I just can't really agree with that. Because it has lower HP than Ardent. And the fact that the group invincibility has more of a delay, it just doesn't really help it out too much. Next is another one that I bet people were expecting to be higher. At number 8, Diorajasaur. Now, Diorajasaur, probably, I mean, like, people are probably saying that, hey, it's the best creature, but it gets hard countered by Gripplith, which is a pretty decent creature, but if you don't really have that, then it's an absolute beast. It has Resilient Rampage, but the main thing is the 1,200 damage and the raking counter, as well as some very good armor crit rate. That's like an insane armor crit rate. But unfortunately, a big weakness that Dio has, it is the only unique with no resistances at all, which means that you can distract it, although that doesn't matter. You could stun it, you can vulnerabilize it. It doesn't even have a way of cleansing vulnerability. Just the fact, and it also doesn't deal with shields too well, but the fact that it can just do insane damage on anything that doesn't have shields is just kind of good. Like, it can just do insane damage on anything that doesn't have shields. It can do insane damage on anything that really doesn't have a negative effect, like, I don't know, because even then, it might as well have a distraction immunity, because all of its attack besides rending counterattack. I meant raking counterattack. God, can you imagine if Dio had rending? No thanks. That it cleanses distraction. So it might as well have a distraction immunity. Next on the list at number 7, number 7 is Magnapirator. Magnapirator has actually kind of been falling out of the meta, and it is the last low tyrant creature that I consider to be low tyrant. It is very good. Actually, it's the highest low tyrant. And that's just because of the fact that it can just go for distracting impact, fierce rampage, basically kill anything. It's extremely fast. It has amazing resistances. It can't be slowed down. It has 20% crit. Its only kind of weakness is its low health. So if you weaken it enough, like say you have something with distraction immunity, I don't really can't think of anything except for Antarctivinator. So you use your Antarctivinator against Magna, and it goes for distracting impact, and you can live because your Ant Ven, your distraction immune, and then you get a big hit off with like vulnerability impact because this is a 2.6 tier list. Then it could just swap to like a Sarah Magnus and kill you. And that's the problem. It's just so big swap bait. But I mean, like, the fact that it's probably one of the best starter creatures in the entire game earns it the high place of number 7. Okay, the last 6 creatures are high tyrant tiers. And at number 6, we have Trichosaurus. Now, Trichosaurus is a very good creature. It has a ton of damage. Has amazing armor crit ratio. Has actually not that good health, but it also has crappy resistances. But I mean, like, this thing just does so much damage. It's a staller type creature, and the fact that it counters cunning, kind of, is just amazing. Because it can kill other fierces, and yeah, that's its main weakness. Other fierce creatures, like Diorajasaur and Mortis Rex. Those guys give it a hard time. But it's actually speed tied with Mortis Rex. So overall, I think this is a pretty good creature. A very good creature, actually. With some very good moves to compensate. Next up is MonoloRhino as our number 5 as we reach the top 5. Now, looking at these moves are not that good at all. The resistances are insane, and the health is average, the damage is quite high, but then it has Swap and Stunning Strike with 1,250 damage. That is quite good. And for some unknown reason, it has 30% armor, which is really good. 30% armor is really good. I don't know why it has it, but it does. So basically, it's just going to stall with shields, and then it's just going to swap out eventually. Then after you send in like your Gemini Titan or something after you swap it out, after Be Safe, then you're just gonna swap back into it again. It's just so tanky. It just has so many shields. It just has a phenomenal. Well, it actually doesn't really have a good phenomenal moveset except for swapping Stunning Strike, but it also just has amazing moveset, amazing stats and resistances. At the number 4 spot on this list, we have Mammalia. Mammalia is one of the best creatures in the entire game. Just hands down, it's top 5. It's amazing. Look at this armor. 50% paired with 5,100 health. If I'm not wrong, which I might be, that is the bulkiest creature in the entire game. Scunosaurus might be bulkier, but I would say that Mammalia may just slightly be bulkier than Scoon. And it doesn't really have high attack, but I mean, like, it can go for Persistent Ferocious Strike into a Resilient Rampage, do like 3,000 damage. And despite being a pure resilient creature, This thing kills every single fierce creature in the entire game. Except for like 3 creatures, and those are like Marsupial Lion. Basically, it kills every single relevant pure fierce, like Mortis Rex and Thordor. It also kills. It also does not kill Trichosaurus, so don't send it up against Trike. But and another thing about it is that it kills every single Apex head to head. Now, does it kill Sarah Magnus with the swap? Probably. It probably kills Sarah Magnus even with the swap. So it just makes it amazing. The only Apex that it almost loses to is Hadros Lux, but this is unboosted. And the fact that Mammalia kills every Apex, it kills Thordor, it just kills so much. It's just so dang bulky. I think the most controversial opinion other than Gemma on this list is to Notrex being at number 3, aka the best unique creature in the game. Now, of course, this thing is super slow, but it's just so dang good. It has, for somehow, as much damage as a full-blown T-Rex. And it can do some insane stuff with distracting impact. Also, since heal is now based on damage, it can heal 1,900. It is just so good. And with Resilient Strike, that makes it a wild card, which means that it can basically handle every single creature in the game. You can basically handle every single thing, almost every single class in the entire game, which that just makes it phenomenal, in my opinion. But there's 2 more creatures that are better than it. Finally, our last 2 creatures are the last 2 Apexes. Number 2 is Hadros Lux. Hadros Lux is insane. It has a ton of health, a lot of damage, and low speed. And it can also rampage spam. But since it has, for somehow, 1,500 damage, if it's not going to be distracted, which, by the way, it's 50% distraction immune, then it can go for Rampage, Resilient Rampage, Rampage, Resilient Rampage over and over again, and then just heal when need to. It also has a medium resilient counterattack, which, of course it has a counterattack. That's going to do half its normal damage. So basically, it can kill almost anything. It kills stuff like Mortis Rex. It kills basically everything. It has such a good head-to-head matchup spread. But there is one more creature that may possibly be better than it, and that is Sarah Magnus. And Sarah Magnus is just insane. For one, it has the highest damage non-rending swap-in the game, 1,500. Tied with MonoloRhino, this makes it a super good website, super good creature. And the reason why I said website is because for some reason my website is lagging. Okay, now it isn't. But it has insane armor crit ratio. Not really that fast, but I mean, like, it can go for group acceleration, make itself insanely fast, has high damage, has decent health. All of its moves, besides for acute stun, are good. Because it's going to go for group acceleration, be like at 171 speed. If it isn't hit with a resilient strike, then it can go for precise rampage. And you're going to swap into it, so basically you can do a 1,500 damage swap. If you stun, great, then just go for group acceleration and then go for precise rampage. That pretty much kills anything without armor. And even if you're probably going to survive with its 30% armor, 4,500 health, you can just go for group acceleration again and then go for precise rampage again. It is super good. But the only problem with it is that it does get countered by Resilient. It beats Cunning, but it can't not beat Resilient. And it also, I'm pretty sure, beats a lot of Fierces. Yeah, it kills Mortis Rex, even without the swap. And even without the swap, it kills a lot. So those were my top 15 creatures in JWA. The top 15 best. Did you agree? Did you most likely disagree? Who knows? Comment your opinions below if you want to. I don't know, I'd be happy to see what your top 15 creatures were. Anyway, Typhoon Zach out.